And welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today in the studio is Ann Moore Armstrong, and our agent with the Bright Agency. And it's a pleasure to have you here on the show.
Great to be with you, Errol.
Thank you. So tell me, what was your career path and what got you into publishing to begin with?
So I was an English literature major in college, and I moved to Boston afterwards. And my first job was at Little Brown and Company, a publishing company, very established in Boston. And there was an imprint there called New York Graphic Books, and they published photography and art books. So I assisted 7 editors there, like an editorial assistant and really a secretary for them, writing their letters to authors and photographers and clients. And so that was kind of my introduction to publishing. Then I took some night courses, some design courses at night, because I loved seeing how designers put books together, the layout and where the pictures went and the text and the size of the text and layout, so you learn all of that. So then I was able to assist the art director of children's books at Little Brown and Company. So that was kind of my introduction to publishing, and I learned all about children's books there, assisting the art director.
Nice.
Then I moved on to my last job in publishing was with Candlewick Press, which was first in Cambridge and now it's in Somerville. And there I designed books and helped hire illustrators for all of their books, from picture books to middle grade novels to young adult novels. We'd hire the artists to be able to illustrate the books. So but that's kind of the career path I had.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What though? And I'm trying to think, how would you gauge the minds of the little ones that you made these books for, the kind of drawings and so forth?
Right.
How would the artists go about picturing what kind of artwork they need to get over to the kids?
Yeah, good question, because there's certain styles that are a little bit more age appropriate for children. So when you're first developing, a child's a toddler and they're just learning to read, they're read to by a caregiver or a parent or a sibling. But so that sometimes the styles need to be a little bolder and more simplified, kind of graphic, and then as a child develops, they can see more nuance and shadows and light and kind of a little bit more detail is shown. So those are things we look at, the different artist styles and what would be appropriate for the text and the story and the age group.
Okay.
Those are all decisions.
Okay. So what was the steps like moving from a publisher to an agent? What really is the difference between both, and how do they tailor, etc.?
Yeah, so a publisher really puts together an author and an illustrator who then, they create books and then they send it to a printer to be printed, and then they distribute the book worldwide. So a publisher really is someone who puts people together, who creates something, like the book, and then know what market and where to distribute it and where to target, whether it be libraries or bookstores or, in specialty shops or museum shops. So publishers, they're always looking at the market and what's happening in the world and, what people are looking for and what kind of stories to be telling.
Yes.
So editors are they're very in tune with what's happening in the world.
Because one thing that I am somewhat fascinated of, and since I never really knew the kind of different expertise that go into creating a book. But we have the authors, we have the editors, we have the publishers. And for me, that really don't know much about the manufacturing of a book or even to resell a book,
the whole
I
process.
mix everyone up, the editor, the
Yeah.
publisher, and the
Just mix it all up and
mix it all up.
Yeah, I can just kind of identify, you know,
Well,
what
nice.
happens is an author sends a manuscript or
Right.
a text to an editor, and an editor reads it and decides whether they feel they can acquire it
Right.
and publish it well. And once they decide they do want to acquire it, then they usually work with an art director.
Right.
And say, I've got this wonderful story, or I have this wonderful text that's nonfiction about, you know, animals or whatever it is. And then the art director gets involved and says, well, what do we want this to look like visually?
Right.
How can we tell the story visually in a really engaging, dynamic, you know, appealing
Yes.
way that's authentic to the text? And we'll add to it, not just, you know, just we'll make it a dynamic book. So an editor and art director usually work closely together
Yes.
to create that. So then you hire an illustrator to create that look.
Right.
So you're looking for different styles for different stories. Then once that person's hired, then a designer works with them about the layout of the book. You know, where will the text go? Where will it break on the page? How many pages will it be? Will there be text all on one side and a picture all on another? Or will it be integrated? Will it have full bleed images, or will it have little spot art? You know, there's all these decisions, spatial and color and all these, you know, the font size, the font style. So that's what a book designer would do, is make those decisions together with the editor. And then once it's all laid out and the artwork comes in, first sketches come in, and you give editorial feedback and say, can you move this word, or maybe change this character? You know, can this character have a hat on? There's all these art direction kind of notes given back. And then an artist does the final art. I'm kind of speeding it along, but
Take your time, take your time.
they deliver the art, and sometimes it takes them, you know, 3 months to do the art, 6 months to do the art, depending on how involved the book is.
Right.
Like my specialty is picture books, and so those are usually 32 pages long, and they have full color, full bleed art, and usually it takes a good, you know, 3 to 6 months to complete that.
Right.
And they deliver the artwork, and then the publisher puts it all together into electronic files that are then sent off to a printer to print in 4 colors, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So 4 colors create a full color book, depending on all the percentages of those colors. So it's really a combination of artistry and craft and science, really, and technology, creating books.
But there's a lot of elements that really goes into this, and you as a book agent actually in some way coordinate this kind of activity, or
no? So an art agent. So from publishing, I then became an art agent, which is representing illustrators and all of their portfolios. So I now work for not a publisher, but an agency that we have many artists who have many styles, and basically I say to all the publishers worldwide, here are our styles of artwork, here are our artists. They would be great for your new picture books or new texts, and so I now represent artists, and I show their work, and so I help artists develop their portfolios, maybe with new characters or new styles that I know publishers are looking for.
Right. So let's say, for example, someone have a book designed, probably just ready for printing. How would you be responsible for helping? And that person I came to, for example, that person came to and said, well, I have a book here that I would have written, probably edited, and I have all the pictures and the cover of the book, everything laid out already. I would love to get my book made and get my book out, published, and have it put on the market. Is that something you can do, or?
So I can do that some of my artists are also writers, and
Right.
so they have it's called a picture book dummy.
Yes.
And so they have, sketched out the characters and the scenes, and
Yes.
they've put in the type, and it's a 32-page book, and they've shared that with me, and I've said, this looks great, but you need to change, I'll give them
Right.
feedback. And then what I'll do is I'll send their work to editors.
Okay.
And I'll say, this is a new book that, and that's why I represent them. I would represent them to the publisher and say, this is a new artist who has a new story, and then sometimes they are then hired and that book is acquired by the editor. And so, and then I would negotiate the contract with the publisher for my artist.
Right.
The offer that they offer them, and we negotiate the terms. And yes, so I would do that for my artists. I would not, there's a lot of people who write and then they think they have to also illustrate their book, and they're really not an illustrator. So I would say to them, don't illustrate your book.
Okay.
Try to either find a literary agent who can represent your writing, and then find a publisher for you, because the publisher likes to put people together.
Right.
They know what's best for that text. They know what's going to work visually for it.
Right.
They're very, that's their expertise. And so you really don't want to limit yourself by showing your work with a certain style of artwork that doesn't really work for them.
Right. Well, I recognize that these books go through several different phases.
Yes.
That's true. So what kind of steps or path should a person then really take? That, and I mean outline some of them just now, but I'm talking about the person who may have a broad vision of how they want their book to be done. They write the book already. They, as I said, they design everything, do everything, but they just need to get someone, probably put the finishes and touches on it, or what kind of advice would you give to that person?
So because I'm coming from a children's book background, I'm just going to speak on that. So there's a wonderful organization called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI.
Okay.
And they really help a new author. They have workshops on how to get published and how to get representation, how to find an agent. It's just kind of a wonderful, catch-all for all these kind of questions. And you can learn a lot because a lot of the writers there and authors, they've already been through that process, they've learned a lot, and they share information very freely. So I would highly recommend that people become a part of that organization. And there are chapters. There's a chapter in Boston, there's a chapter in New England, there's a chapter in almost every state and region in the US and worldwide. They're all over. And so, but for the person that has something that seems pretty ready to be published, I would say that you have to find out if a publisher takes unagented work. A lot of people will only look at work that is through an agent.
Yes.
That through representation. So if that's the case, if you want to be published by that publisher, then you probably should get an agent.
Get an agent. Well, I find that even though there are a lot of agents listed out there, because a little over a month ago I was trying to connect to an agent, and for some reason, it's an independent book that my daughter would have written, but no one really replied. It seems so complicated. There are agents that you're contacting, but no one, even though you leave voicemails and so forth, no one is responding back to your call, and it seems difficult to reach out to an agent. And then when you reach some other organizations, they only work for institutions who publish books, who make books, and so forth.
Right. There's really very niche agents. Like they have very focused areas of publishing. So that's really the research to be done. Is like what agents are right for my piece of work, because you won't hear back from someone if it's just like you know, just doesn't relate to what they do. I mean, you might, but it sounds like you haven't.
Right, right, right. So here, as an art agent, what does your job entail? How do you help artists? I know you briefly ran over it just now, but in that, give us a broad insight on how you really help.
Right.
Those,
so a lot of artists go to art school and they have a great portfolio from that time, but sometimes I'll look at a portfolio and I might see a style in there that would relate very well to children's books, but they don't necessarily have children in their portfolio. They might have an adult or a dog, or and seeing animals is wonderful because a lot of children's books have animals. And but what I'm looking for is children, and I'm looking for emotional content and kind of connection, because a lot of children's books are about, you know, beginning your life and learning about family and learning about friends and bedtime and, you know, playing outside and just like the very basics and development. And so you want artwork that's going to help children understand the world and understand emotional connection. And so I'm looking for that. And if I see that someone has the ability to draw and to paint well, but it's not in their portfolio, that kind of work, then I will help to develop those images with them, you know, to show interaction between friends or, you know, different animals. I like to look for movement and just more action. So you look for different things. And that's what I try to develop in their portfolios.
Okay. So would you say that in most children, based on the age groups, that there's a certain mind frame for a certain age category that most children fall under, that you can specifically tailor a book that would probably meet those needs within that age range? If so, though, how do you go about finding the right kind of pictures that really touch them in a way that it can develop their mental ability?
Right. These are good questions. I mean, a lot of editors are very adept in child development and psychology and just what a child needs, and and that, and there's certain styles of artwork that are going to be less helpful or facilitate or more helpful in that area. So I think it's something you learn over time and experience, and you start to kind of understand what is and isn't appropriate given the age, you know, age targets and genres.
Correct. And do you think that those same people have to, like, mentally go back to what a child may think, or even go back to their own childhood days to see what is more relevant for that specific group?
I think a lot of artists tap into their childhood experiences, and sometimes that's really powerful when someone, you know, had a really strong experience, you know, maybe a friend or finding an animal, you know, and taking care of it. It's just something that they could really tap into. You can sometimes sense that, like if I look at a portfolio and I see something that's very emotionally, you know, powerful, then you realize that that's, you know, that's something that person carries. And so, and that's really neat to know artists who, let's say there's an artist who loves, you know, like I have one artist and she has pet rats. She absolutely loves rats, and they have personality, and she shares about them constantly, and she can draw them beautifully. You know, the average artist does not know rats, but this particular one does.
Well, I am amazed that you say that these rats have a personality.
They do. Believe it or not, they do. Just like any creature, you know. So in that case, if I came across an editor who had a text about a rat, I would immediately think of her and say, have you thought of her work for this? She's passionate about them. She also rescues animals and has a real heart for animals. So she's great for certain texts because she's bringing that passion to it. And so she's going to pull out very different kind of, you know, artwork and
Yes.
expression than someone else.
Yeah. But that is really enlightening, because back in the old biblical times, art was the formation of how people actually communicate, even before there were actually written words or written numbers.
Sure.
And I believe that it has a long-lasting impact on one's psyche. But my question is still is, as you go from one age group to another, how can we really pinpoint the right type of art for that specific group? Because as the kid develops from one stage to the next, his brain or her brain is going to phase out, probably from embracing the art that he or she would have when they were 4 or 5 years old, and somewhat inclined to embrace something else, probably in a different image. How do we actually go about, since the variation varies as they get older, how do we actually pinpoint the right type of drawings or the right kind of art, whether it's in form of little drawing or is in the performing arts or some other form of arts? How do we?
Well, I think perhaps the word pinpoint is a little bit too narrow, because everyone is at a different development stage. Everyone has a different aesthetic and what they respond to emotionally or whatever. So I think the idea is that you're trying to create something that does engage and appeal to people. It doesn't mean you're pinpointing exactly like at 11 years old they then move to this art style. It's not like that at all. And in fact, picture books especially, some adults collect them and love them, and I love picture books. You know, you don't grow out of that art style. It's, you might appreciate it in a different way. You might approach it in a different way, but and you might see more as you grow older there. But anyway, but I think, you know, there maybe the boundaries are a little more blurred in terms of people's development, and so that's where a librarian or a parent, knowing the child, seeing how they're developing, maybe this book might challenge them more, or maybe this book might actually, they might have the pleasure of reading this instead. You know, it's kind of helping a child discover where they're at and what might, you know, engage them. And so that's really important. So that's why there's so many styles out there, and that's good, because you know, everybody's a little different.
Yeah, and you know, there are slow learners out there. And I find from observation throughout the years as a child growing up that even the slow learners somewhat embrace artwork even more than even reading and writing at that point in time.
Absolutely.
And it shows a critical point at the developmental stage. But one of the other questions I want to ask you, why does someone really need an art agent?
Oh, okay. Well, art agents really help navigate.
Well, need an agent. Not necessarily art agent, but need an agent.
An illustrator would need an art agent. A writer would need a literary agent. So that's the distinction. But and the benefit to anyone having an agent is that we help navigate the publishing world for them. I'm constantly showing their work to publishers and keeping them known and seen, so that they can be doing their artwork. You know, they're not out promoting. I mean, some of them promote their work anyway, but they have someone who's their advocate, who is getting them work, sending them jobs, getting them hired, so that they can be focused on actually the craft and the art. And also, I negotiate their contracts, so I'm working on their behalf to get the best terms. You know, I have one illustrator before she had a job where she didn't get a royalty, a percentage of the royalties. She only got a flat fee. And this book has gone on to be a bestseller and is selling thousands of copies, but she's not getting any royalty percentage. She just got that flat fee in the beginning. Whereas we always are negotiating, you know, at least some kind of royalty for our artists, so that they see they have like that income coming in.
Yes, because I believe that since there's so much work that the agent is putting in, that it has to be more than just a flat fee, because long after you have get that book out there and it continuously sell over and over and over,
Yeah.
It's only one body who's going to be actually benefiting.
Right.
And I think it's only fair that there should be some form of royalties,
Right.
contractually speaking,
Right.
between.
Yeah. That's just an example, but those are the kind of terms that we really look at and make sure, because
Right.
some artists, they might not read a contract, you know, fully as they
Yes.
should, and so they know that they have someone really looking at that and negotiating and getting the best terms for them. That's another benefit. Another benefit is, like I said, just developing their portfolio. Some of them, you know, they kind of get stuck in their own world and they love skunks and they do a million skunks, but like, you know, have
Exactly.
you ever tried a cat? Have you ever, I mean, it sounds so basic, but sometimes you just need to, you need someone to kind of challenge you
Naturally.
and say, you know what, there's a lot of stories right now about superheroes and space. Could you create an image for that and just a new sample that I can show an editor? And so it's that kind of relationship. I'm
Yes.
trying to develop them so that they are seen and that they're hired.
What is the most enjoyable part about your career?
Gosh, I feel very fortunate to be able to work with artists because they're so talented.
Yes.
And then, you know, sometimes they go through really tough times. They usually work in isolation in a studio at home. They don't make as much money by a steady
Right.
paycheck, so there can be anxiety for them and fear that maybe I'm not going to be hired, you know. So I'm kind of there as their support. You know, I counsel, you know, just, you know, you can do it. This is what you need to do next. Kind of managing and helping them and supporting them and advocating for them. So I love that. I love kind of being involved in their life, but also seeing them successful.
Nice. Well, that is very nourishing.
Yeah.
That's very nourishing.
Yeah, and
Well,
then when the books come out and you see this beautiful book and children love it and
Yes.
parents love it, you know, there's such satisfaction.
Beautiful. Well, Anne, thank
Yeah.
you so much for
Yeah,
joining me on
my
the
pleasure.
show. We have come to the end of the program, and I want to say to all those who have been tuning in, thank you so much. And once again, bye-bye and enjoy. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund breeding.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Information on hot water heating.
No. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out the words.
World music playing track now.
No.
Let me try. Our daughter gets confused about which details in a story are important.
Which paper towels are most absorbent?
What?
Here are 5 product reviews.
Why are you not getting me?
See, I told you.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it here. So what are you waiting for? Just go to the site.
Hi, may I please have an application? Thank you.
Skip the drama. Get your diploma.
Okay.
Take that first step towards a better future. Find free adult education classes at finishyourdiploma.org.